go.
Here we go. Bambos Dimitriou. Here we are.
Andy Shayler.
Charles Dimitriou. We are online. This is our second go with Denise Lite. We missed our first appointment by a day, and we're going to do an hour with her discussing hundreds and hundreds of divorces, as she is a divorce lawyer.
On?
A wonderful. Okay. Us. Hey, we are here.
Hello, Andy.
Hey, Bambos. So
this is an exciting subject, I find.
It is. It has
like other people suffering.
I know. It was kind of interesting because, like, you know, when we first started doing this, I thought, you know, I wanted it to go for the wonderful chaos, right? I didn't want there to be, you know, emotional trainers or like people in leadership roles. Like I didn't want us to be spending days talking about people about how they should live. Like that was off the cards for me. So when I was just sitting down and thinking all the people in my life and what they're doing, and of course on Facebook I get to see people what they post, and then I see Denise, and every so often she'll post a snarky post about divorce, and it was two things. The first of all, like both my brothers are lawyers. And if my dad had his way, Andy would also have been a lawyer, right? God. I mean, he really wanted that. I told you when I was 40s, he said, our last conversation to me was, Andy, just so you know, if you do want to go to law school, I'd be happy to pay for it. You know, like that was how much he thought being a lawyer was important. So and my brothers are pretty straight. So even though they'll do the law, I was really like surprised by how Denise would feel so comfortable with snarky posts. Because for me, I've got an
example of a snarky post.
She'll give us some examples, but she'll say, I mean, just to be general, how shitty it is to be in her job. So, I mean, in my brothers, there's no way, you know, I think one of them doesn't even have a Facebook page because it's just too much exposure. So he just doesn't. And I had to think to myself, it was counter to everything I would have expected, because what I know in law is that you make other people really angry. Like that's kind of your job, to make other people angry. Because in general, if they're angry, they settle. So I'm thinking to myself, Denise is putting herself out there. She's a strong voice, not anxious. She was never been anxious as far as I've known her. But I was really quite impressed by that. So then I thought, isn't it wild? Maybe we can get her on to discuss this, because I probably wouldn't have asked anyone else unless I felt like they would be comfortable discussing it. You know, and you know what the discussions we normally would have would be the ones where someone is like, yes, it's a 5-stage process. And the first stage is agreeing to separate. And I thought, oh, no, we're not having that discussion. Like, we're going to have a discussion, like, what the hell really goes on? Like how does it feel to have so much hatred projected onto you? That's sort of where I wanted to sort of get to.
I feel you.
And
behind the scenes, when we ask her, is there anything we can't talk about? Just to say, she said, I can't mention names, but we can go everywhere. So we're like,
that's great.
So
this is sort of a fun episode this is like so contrary to any other episode we've done, as far as I'm concerned, because I've never gone into an episode where it was just like, I just want salaciousness. Like, that's what I want. I want to hear how one deals with the most miserable moment in just about everyone's life that they have met.
And she does hundreds of these.
And she does hundreds.
Like sometimes overlapping.
Yes. And she's done that for 23 years, over 500 of them in that time.
Like, if you think about it, though, she must really have, like, just meeting her, she had really this beautiful lightheartedness about her. So it's like she has to find that part of herself that can find humor in things. Yeah. Or else she'd be like,
I agree. I don't think you could do that work, or you'd just be suffocated. So you have to make peace with the absurdity of what you're doing each day. I think that would be it. Yeah. So without further ado, I think it'd be great to bring her on.
Denise Lite, everybody.
Denise Lite.
Hi.
It's so hard for me to call you Light, of course, because I know you as DeCourcy.
Yes.
So it's like, in fact, Lite felt like sort of almost a made up name because it's so nice, you know?
And it's easy to put in email addresses, which I love. Yeah. Lite, super short, super awesome, easy to pronounce. So it's been a history of the name changes over the years, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But yes, I love it.
Yes. Thank you for coming on. What made that you said yes? Because there's no way that this would have been just easy, I thought. Is it did you have any misgivings before you came on?
Zero.
Oh, nice.
So I came on because I really loved your book so much. I thought it really touched me so much. I wrote a letter to my dad after I read your book. And I was just so impressed with your book, and I was excited to reconnect with you and hear your voice and see your face after reading your book. So I was like, yes, instantly yes.
Wow. You know, every time I see that gratitude, I feel like I want to cry. Because, you know, in a weird way, when you do things, you do it. It's a kind of a selfless act. You don't even know if anyone's going to read it. And then in the end, to see that it touched someone and then that's reflected back, that's been hard for me to receive my whole life. So there's a kind of a beauty that I'm allowing myself to feel. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. How, if we segue it to you, because that's what I like to do usually. It's enough about me. Now let's get to you. 23 years. What makes you decide to become a divorce attorney?
Well, that's actually a really funny story. I didn't decide to become an attorney. I was a senior in college. I was student teaching. It was Christmas time. The kids were amped up on candy and sugar. We were making like little reindeer puppets with lunch bags. I had like 35 kids in the class with no support. And I saw a little kid pouring glue on the top of the head of another kid. And my instant instinct was to run over there, grab him by the shirt and go, "What the hell are you doing?" And it was like I had a God moment where I was like, no, this job is not for you, sister. And the next day I went to my counselor and I'm like, I can't be a teacher. It's not in my wheelhouse. I don't have the loving, compassionate heart for it. I need to do something different. And he's like, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I have no idea." So I took the law school entrance exam. And my dad's a lawyer, and he told me, "Do not become a lawyer. It is not LA law. Don't do it." And I did it, and that's how I got into the law, by avoiding homicide with a 4-year-old.
I was going to say, let's think about that for a moment, because now all you're dealing with is all the adults that are pouring glue on other people's heads. So you've basically doing this. You've given yourself permission to say, now, screw you. I'm going after you for not taking responsibility.
And I can grab them by the shirt and like, it's cool. You know?
Oh, so that happens. And then you go to law school subsequent to that.
Yes.
Okay. And then you do that. But when you're in law school, you haven't decided yet you're going to be a divorce attorney, I guess. You just went to law school.
Being a divorce attorney happened completely by accident. I was a corporate attorney. I did breach of contract cases, fights over multi-million dollars. And my law partner, my father, said to me, "Hey, you need to handle this divorce case for our family friend." And I'm like, "I'm not doing that. That's what?" I was totally insulted. And he said, "No, you're doing it." And, what the hell? I had no choice. So I did it. And then, another family friend gets divorced and my dad's like, "Hey, you have experience now. Go do this one too." And I was like, "I don't like this." And he just sent me on more and more and more. And then I realized how important it was to reconfigure families, reconfigure their finances, reconfigure their investments, reconfigure, their parenting. And I became really good at it really quickly. And so I just kind of transitioned over to it, and it was completely by accident. And I love it. Obviously, I'd like to work less, but I really enjoy it. I love it. I have fun. I mostly represent men. That's a small little tidbit you may not know.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just totally by accident.
Why men?
Yeah.
This is a funny story. So, a woman comes into your office and, let me start the opposite way. A man comes into your office and you tell them, "Go do A, B, and C. When you're finished, call me, make an appointment, and we'll go over it." The man goes and does A, B, and C, calls and makes an appointment, and we go over it. You tell the female, go do A, B, and C. Call me when you're finished to make an appointment and we'll go over it. And they go, why? I want them to do theirs first. Why do I have to? I'm like, holy shit, no wonder he's divorcing you. Like, it's so difficult. Like, everything is a battle, and the guys just follow instruction. So it's just by accident, nice. I guess, kind of, but I definitely, and the smartest clients, though, are the women who hire me and actually follow instructions because they know I mostly represent men, so they want to preempt it.
This is what I was talking about, Bambos. See, this is what I was talking about when you asked me earlier, what was I meaning when I said that she didn't have any problem? Like, you've offended every woman in watching the show right now.
I know.
And the funny thing is that if I think about it, like, if men in general are far more pragmatic and emotionally shut down. So if you give them a checklist, all they're going to say is, okay, I've just got to do the checklist. But you could certainly say
very directional.
Very directional. Tell me what to do and I do it, right? Where you can see the emotional baggage that, like, God, you didn't give me what I needed. And I feel so much resentment. It was for better, for worse, and all that. Yes.
Well, and normally what I have to tell people is, you're not going to get your pound of flesh. The judge is not going to say, ma'am, you're right. He was a totally crappy husband. You deserve X, Y, and that doesn't happen. You're not going to get your pound of flesh. And a lot of time that's what people want. And honestly, you said I've just insulted every woman watching the show, but you know what?
Haven't.
Deep down inside, they know I'm right.
You have not. You have not. Jana L. Kirk Levine, has obviously still married to Mr. Levine, she's not offended. So we have at least one female out there that agrees.
Nowadays, I actually kind of seeing men being more in their feminine. Like, how does that play out?
Actually, what we're seeing more now is that a lot of men are seeking spousal support from their wives because their wives are out earning them.
Oh, wow.
And it is a crazy, crazy shift in dynamics. And a lot of women are like, oh, he's asking me for spousal support. Well, if the situation was reversed, you would be doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like, are we feminists? Are we not feminists? I don't know. And we don't want to start that topic with me, but a lot of women are now finding themselves paying spousal support to men in California because they are out earning them.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
And how is that for you? Because I mean, I see you don't have an attachment to the outcome, but you do in the sense you want the outcome to occur. But for you to go in, you must be across on some tables when it gets pretty heated, like where the woman would expect that she might even receive money, although she's earning more. And then you say, no, we're actually expecting money.
All the time. I've been in conference rooms where people have jumped over the table and started fights. No joke. Like my male client and a male attorney. Okay, so here's the dynamic. Most males want to hire a female attorney because they don't want to go to court, two guys bashing on their wife. It's like the appearance. So they want to have an aggressive female attorney so it doesn't look like they're trying to bash their wives. The females want to have a male attorney because they feel like they're being protected more, or that the male attorney can provide more power for them. So the males usually hire females and the females usually hire males. And then, the male clients might jaw off with the male attorneys. So it's a very interesting human relation study for sure.
I feel like I'm watching a National Geographic episode right now. We're on the safari, and this is basically the animal kingdom we're talking about.
Like Denise, I'm listening to you speak, and there's a kind of power there. And then I'm thinking, in a courtroom, I probably amp that up 10 times more. And you've got like a pit bull.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny that you said that because I've been called the ponytailed pit bull before.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
There's lots of adjectives that have been given to me, which I love. If I'm getting under somebody's skin, I'm doing my job. So that's fine with me. My job is not to make friends with other people. I'm professional. I'm appropriate. But my job is just to get my client to the end of the finish line, and that's it.
Wonderful.
I love it. It's wild.
I would like to get a little bit more into the juice now.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what?
Wait, I need a coffee break for this. Hold
Yeah,
on.
please grab.
Shoot.
What happens between two guys?
Oh, for gay divorce, usually more high conflict, usually much more emotional, usually go to trial much more. Very interesting dynamic. The funniest one I had was a 3-day trial over custody of the Chihuahua.
Oh, wow. Yes. Who's going to get the Chihuahua?
Yep.
Yep.
Very, very emotional. Lots of crying, lots of sentiment. It was a battle of who had more pictures with Fido and who had the veterinary records in their name, who registered the dog with the city, who took the dog on vacation. Oh, lots of evidence. Lots of evidence.
Really? So
yeah.
It's really like if you were going to have a child and you're fighting over the child. There's no difference as I hear you speak.
For sure. And a lot of times people want the dog more than the child because the dog doesn't talk back when they're 8 years old, but I jest, but you know what I'm saying.
Oh boy.
Oh man. Oh. What's the worst? Give me the worst situation you've been in. One where maybe you might have even been frightened for your own life.
Dead serious story. It was featured in the LA Times over 2 Sundays in the Sunday editorial section. A female lit herself on fire, cut her own hair, and claimed that my client attempted to murder her. He was arrested. He was a vice president of a bank. He was arrested, placed in solitary confinement, no bail, had a criminal case proceed against him. And we fought custody in 2 states, California and Nevada. And ultimately, it was determined that she tried to frame him, because what a better way to get sole custody of your child than to put the father in jail for life.
Wow.
It was so intense. And there were times where I would be flying back and forth to Vegas for the custody part, and the wife would be on my flight. And I was so paranoid that she would claim that I was following her or tried to run her off the road or something, because she was so crazy that I would always call somebody on my cell phone and say, I'm just going to leave the connection open so that I could always be. One of the ways that he was found innocent was pings on cell phone towers by his phone, because he happened to be talking to his boss. So anytime I was on this chick's flight, I would always make sure I called the minute I landed, so it could be proven that I never followed her, I never stalked her, I never tried to run her off the road. And I would always sit in the airport parking lot for about 30 minutes to let her go on her way. It was crazy.
Wow.
He spent over $1 million in legal fees between his criminal case and his family law case. And he so his kid is turning 18 next month. Every Christmas morning, he sends me a picture of him and his kid, and he says, I only have this because of you. He's done that for 8 years. He sent me a picture of his kid.
Wow.
The kid is graduating with a 4.4 GPA and got a scholarship to a pretty prestigious New York university. And what's really interesting about this story is that the case was so crazy. It got picked up by Anderson Cooper, Good Morning America, The Today Show. And we were supposed to go film an episode of Dateline. Yeah. And 4 days before the filming, my client called me and said, I'm not going, and we're not doing this. And I said, okay, that's fine, but why? And he said, I don't want this to be my kid's legacy. I don't want it out there. I get that it's already out there, but I don't want this to be a TV episode. Right. He goes, I just don't want. And I was like, okay, no problem. And so I'm going to probably go see them in August before the son goes to college, and have a little going away party. And it's pretty awesome.
Did the woman in this instance, did they serve prison time because of trying to frame another individual, or how did that work?
No, she, during the pendency of the case, she actually tried to commit suicide and was unsuccessful because they knew that law enforcement was hot on her trail. And the district attorney of this particular county decided not to prosecute her because they didn't think that they could prove it. And I literally sat outside the district attorney's office for 3 days demanding to meet with him, and they would never meet with me.
Wow.
It was such a crazy case, Andy. Like literally, I did not sleep for like 3 years. This was all I thought about.
Yeah.
It consumed my life.
Yeah.
It's the LA Times. I should send you the article so you could read it, just because it's going to be a book or a movie someday, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I mean, what I know of these sort of situations is that there's an unrelenting need to think of every single detail which exonerates the accusation, and your brain can't, it has to deal with every single, like how you got to the relay towers of the pings. That would have probably taken you at least a few weeks to finally say, this is the way we can prove it.
Well, and what was really crazy is, after this whole ordeal, my client, he lives his life by his credit card now. Even after the fact, anywhere he goes, he's always making sure to pay for gas by credit card, pay for gum at 7-Eleven, because it provides an alibi for him of wherever he is in the process. Wow. And it's a crazy way to live life. And actually, the LA Times writer who did the story, he's the producer of the Dirty John series on Bravo. Mm-hmm. And I'm just waiting for them to call because they do true crime stories on Dirty John. And I'm sure that it's going to be up next. And we'll just see what happens. But my client literally lives his life by his credit card.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof. I feel that. Jesus.
Yeah, it's so intense.
Like, I've had to deal with tax issues for the last years. Mm-hmm. It's been because I'm working between the US and the Netherlands.
Oh, yeah, that's very difficult.
And each country says, hey, if you're working there and you're working here, then we're entitled to that. So I've basically, and Bambos can attest, that had a year of guys, just figure it, there's nothing here outside of the fact that you guys can't agree to however I'm invoicing. It took a year to get to resolution. It was painful. Mm-hmm. And it all ended on a 30-minute conversation. I went to their offices. We sat down. I said, this is what I did and why I did it. Then it was just resolved. But it took us a year through this absurd pain to resolve it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the legal system is not, justice is slow. It is painstaking. It is, continuances and rehashing, and it's a lot of keeping super organized, keeping facts in your mind. I can't, my husband will tell you this. I cannot find my keys every morning when I go to bed or every morning when I wake up to go to work, but I have so many facts about cases in my head that little things I'm very forgetful about, where my keys are, where I put some receipt that I need to take something back. And he gets frustrated and I'm like, hey, you have no idea what I'm carrying around in my brain on a daily basis. Keys are so insignificant in my life when people are trying to move to another country with their kid, or people that's the kind of stuff that occupies my brain.
Yeah. I have the same with people's names. I could tell you what their mommy daddy issue was from 8 years old or 10 years old, or why they, I'll remember all of that because that's actually what shaped them and created who they are. Mm-hmm. But then their name is well, I don't know. Why is that relevant?
Right.
It's exactly. It's not who you are. It's a label,
Right. You could have any name. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Wow.
Have you experienced the opposite? People are divorcing, but they're very loving, and I mean,
yes. So after 23 years of doing this, usually when people come into my office and they say, oh, this is going to be super simple, we agree on everything, it's going to be low conflict, those are cases are like DEFCON 10. And the people who come in who say, oh my God, I just want you to be can you handle this? This is going to be a nightmare. My husband is so narcissistic, or my wife is crazy. And those cases usually settle right away. So yes, I mediate a lot of cases for people who don't have lawyers, where they just come in and they say, listen, this is what we want to do to parent our kids. This is how we're going to divide the assets. This is how we're going to pay the divorce. Can you just help us figure out, these couple of things? And I do that all the time. And they're just better friends than they are lovers. They're better co-parents than they are lovers. You know, that happens sometimes. Sure.
I don't know if you saw the movie Marriage Story.
I won't watch it.
Why not?
Because I've heard it's very, very emotional. I've heard it's very intense. And I live that on a daily basis,
Yes.
9 to 5. So on my off time, I don't want to watch work.
It would so be your work. It would be like a day in your life for sure.
Yeah,
it was one of the most painful movies for me to watch in a long time.
Yeah, what? I live so many. I'm a very empathetic person. I carry around. When people come see me, I always ask to see a picture of their children because I want to know who I'm fighting for. And so, I carry around so much stuff, which is why I'm that Peloton freak that you see on Facebook.
Yeah.
I carry around so much stuff that to just sit on a couch on a Saturday night and watch that, like I'd rather, wash my cat than do that.
Yeah. I got it. It was sort of the reason why I brought it up was, of course, because it has to do with the divorce. But one of the most painful things to see was that it all is around the premise that this isn't going to be a problem. We're just going to settle this between the two of us. And then the divorce lawyer comes in and then all of a sudden it goes chaotic. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Some people say like, oh, lawyers just add fuel to the fire. And how I approach every case is if you guys can come to an agreement, that makes me happy because that saves you money. It preserves your kids' college fund. And you're going to go out and tell 15 of your friends that I was the greatest lawyer ever and that, it didn't cost you an arm and a leg and your third child.
Yeah.
Because people think that there's a financial incentive for lawyers to fight. And that's simply not true. Mm-hmm. Because when the clients end up broke at the end of the day, are they going to go tell their 15 friends how great you were? No, they're going to tell them that they left you bankrupt.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of perspective.
I had a few questions that I parked in my brain, and I have to write notes nowadays because I never remember them. You said something earlier that I thought was quite funny and fascinating.
Before you continue,
take a note, Andy.
Can we take a deep breath in here because it's a lot?
No breathing, Babos.
Like I'm feeling just by being with you for 27 minutes right now, the intensity of how you're living on a day-to-day basis. Like, wow.
It's a lot, not to get too detailed, but when you have so much negativity, like I have a lot of negativity in my life. I am in constant fight or flight mode for my clients. So, for example, on a personal level, it's very difficult for me to lose weight because I have so much cortisol and stress pulsing through my body. Like, I have difficulty sleeping because, I'll wake up at 3:00 in the morning on the daily thinking about, oh my God, I have to remember to do this, or I want to make sure I take care of this. So it's a very intense lifestyle. So, even when I go on vacation, like it takes me 2 days to actually even feel like my body relax. It takes that long to just decompress. It's very intense.
And that's why you went to Mexico.
Yes, that's why I went to Mexico. And it was amazing and hot and just laying on a beach with literally nobody in sight. It was amazing. And honestly, I don't take vacation. It's the first time I've taken a vacation in 4 years, which is crazy. But I can't stand coming back to the amount of work that piles up while I'm gone. It's just easier for me to take like a day here, an extended weekend here. I went to Europe 4 years ago for 3.5 weeks, and the amount of work that piled up in that amount of time, it was drowning to me. So, but I realized on this trip, I have to be better in making time for myself so that I'm better for clients. It's not being self-indulgent to take a vacation. It's actually making myself better for them, so I have to just kind of remember that.
Yeah, I certainly live by that, in that, I don't take any more than a certain number of clients. Because if I'm not clear and emotionally present, then I'm no service to anyone anyways.
Right.
So it's not like how many people, because if you're a psychiatrist and you have a certain rhythm and certain approach, you can do that over and over again because you're not really necessarily like embodying the pain or whatever you're trying to find as a sort of a support mechanism.
Right. Yeah. I actually I have he's a therapist, but he's kind of just like a professional that I can unload on. And I was talking to him about, the stress of the job, and he's like, listen, and I do limit the amount of, I can only juggle so many balls at one time. So the amount of cases I take naturally are limited. But he's like, listen, you will be no good for anybody else if you are operating on 3 hours sleep and, no vacation. So either hire somebody else or delegate or do something. And he really kind of set me straight. This was back in January-ish. And so we kind of talked about, starting the new year on a slower pace, which funny how the slower pace happened without me, getting involved just because of the pandemic. So that happened naturally.
Would you imagine that you're going to have more divorces because of COVID?
100%. I'm already preparing. I already have the 3 people lined up that I'm hiring. When you put husbands and wives and kids and dogs and bills and reduced hours and layoffs, it is like can I say shitstorm? Like, it's a shitstorm waiting to happen.
I've been getting calls at 12 o'clock at night to have discussions around how do we not get divorced? And this is happening on a more regular basis. So I already can tell you that your business is going to shoot through the roof.
And my business is going to shoot through the roof. I think psychologists for children are going to be busier than ever. Children are going to see their parents fighting more. Yeah. They're going to be exposed to it more. I think it's a very sad state of affairs. But yeah, definitely. And if people want to know how to get divorced, like my husband and I, he goes to his office, and we both could work from home at this point in time because it's all Zoom and it's all email and all that stuff. But we literally both go and separate, because then we're happy to see each other at 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock at night, But for some people, they can't do that. So I would just say, be as independent as possible, take care of your body, exercise, get good sleep, I started taking Italian classes just to have something to do, and it's super easy with apps. There's all kinds of things that you can do if you want to. So I would encourage people to do that. When people come to me, actually, and they hire me, they're like, okay, what do I need to do? And I give them the checklist of things to do. And I also say, you must exercise 90 minutes a day.
Oh, wow.
What? Yeah. You have to go for a walk. You have to take the dogs out, go for a hike. The exercise will help you sleep. It will help you process things better. You have to exercise because, they can pay me to be their therapist, or they can let the exercise endorphins do it for them for free.
Yeah.
And it's so much better for them.
Nice.
I had another question going back to an earlier thing. You said, and I thought it was quite funny, you said, my partner, my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So how has it been to have your dad as your partner?
You know what? It's amazing. I am so lucky. I know so many. So my mom died when I was 10. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. My mom died when I was 10. So I'm very close to my dad. My dad remarried when I was 12, and it was a very difficult, traumatic blending of 2 families for me. I acted out. I was in trouble all the time. It was very, very difficult. So, once I went to college and got away from the household experience, I was able to appreciate things a lot more. But I've always been close with my dad. And I know lots of parents lots of friends who don't have their parents anymore. And I'm just so lucky that I have my dad. He's a complete, he would be a great guest on this show because he's got the best personality. He's crazy. Like, for example, I didn't tell him I was going to Mexico on vacation because we worked together. I didn't want him to worry. I don't want him to worry about me getting COVID, all of this stuff. So he sends me a text and he's like, so where are you on your vacation? And I'm like, do you really want to know? And he's like, yep. And I said, Mexico. You know what his response was? Idiot. So like that's how we talk to each other. So I really love working with him. The only downside is, we see each other a lot during the week. So he'll say like, oh, I'm having a barbecue with all of your other siblings. Come over for the Sunday. And I'm like, Dad, I've spent all week with you. Like, I need to stay home and, do my own thing. And that doesn't happen very often, but I love working with him. I feel blessed to work with him. I'm staying away from him for the next 14 days, just in case, I feel fine. I've been COVID tested twice through this whole process leading up to Mexico, because I wanted to make sure. He's 83, so I have to be careful. Yeah. But I just feel so lucky that, I get the opportunity to laugh and joke and see him 3 or 4 times a week.
I mean, that's incredible. If you think about it, how many people really would be working with their father or parent till the time that parent is 83? That's unheard of. I don't know if I know of anyone else that has that much contact with a parent in a business relationship. Yeah.
And he will never retire. Like he says, I'll retire when I'm dead. Like last year at 82 years old, he went through like a multi-day jury trial, had a great result. Yeah. Yeah. And it made me so proud of him. Like, he had to get hearing aids, fine tuned so he could hear the judge. But when he texted me and he says, big win, like it made me so proud. And he always calls me the boss, like, with the staff, like the staff will be like, are we working the Friday after, after some holiday? And he's like, I don't know, ask the boss. So he always calls me the boss.
That's wonderful.
But when he is successful, it just man, 83, it just makes me so proud.
Nice. Wow. Now I have a question that was asked on the side.
This one?
Yeah, that one from an interesting person out there named Rani Paputri. Wonder who she is. His wife? She's asking him why the hell she'd want to know this. I don't know, but she does want to know, do you have reoccurring clients, multiple divorces of a single person?
Yes.
Can you give us a record? What's the maximum number of divorces that you've ever gone through with one individual?
3.
Huh.
And actually, funny story. So I used to host divorce parties. And so what I would do is I would invite all of my divorced clients to an event, my newly divorced clients, they're now single. I would select the good ones, the fun ones, the ones who aren't like total psychos. So I would host a party at the Westlake Hyatt. They used to have this thing called reggae nights on Friday night. And I would rent a cabana. I would invite like 40 clients and I would just introduce them. And they felt comfortable because I was the common denominator. It wasn't like just, meeting some stranger off the street. Like if Denise knows them, they must be cool, right? So I invited these 2 people and I'll just use different names for them.
So we're saying, 20 males, 20 females. Is that what we're talking? Okay.
Yeah. So there was a woman named Susan at the party who I represented, and there was a woman named Joe at the party that I represented, and they started dating, and then they got married. Holy cow. Now, I'm creating inventory for myself. This is great. Yeah. And so 3 years later, I get a call, I go to work and there's a voicemail and it's, Denise, it's Susan. Things aren't going well with Joe. I need to talk to you right away. And the very next message was, Denise, it's Joe. I gotta come in and see you. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is so crazy, And so I didn't end up returning any one of their phone calls. I had to send them both an email that said, hey, I've heard from both of you. Sorry, things aren't going well. I have to send you out. So that was a really crazy experience.
So that's not very good business development, actually, if you think about it.
It's the perfect business development. I get them divorced. I reintroduce them. They get divorced again. It's like I'm creating inventory for myself.
Yeah, but you can't represent either of them when they get divorced again. That's what I mean.
Only if both of them call. Sometimes both of them don't call.
Oh, okay. Maybe only one of the 2 calls for you. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Well, I would have thought that if they had one good experience with you, then they'd probably both want you. That would be the idea, of course.
Mm-hmm. I have a funny story. There's a really funny story. I represented a gal, and her husband was a pretty prolific real estate agent in the San Fernando Valley. Like he did a lot of deals. And I went at him pretty hard, again, in a nice, professional, I'm being free and easy with you guys, but I don't want anybody to get the impression that, this is how I act in court, because it's not.
I don't think anyone have that impression. I think we all see the teeth you're not showing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I said earlier, right?
so I went at him pretty hard, and this guy refers me about 12 clients a year. And one time I called them and I'm like, thank you so much for thinking of me. I just have to ask, like, why do you send so many clients to me? And he goes, I don't want any of my buddies to experience what I experienced with you, so I'm sending them your way. And that happens a lot,
God
actually.
forbid the other person gets you. I'm blocking you from being anyone else's representative.
Right. Yeah. So
That's
I get a lot of
fantastic.
referrals.
Incredible.
I get a ton of referrals from opposing parties, actually.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because they felt your wrath.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't want to say wrath because that sounds so.
No,
I
but I
don't know.
mean, I have to say that I've, at least in my life, said there's certain lawyers that you use in order to get things like done administratively, like they're
Mhm.
good at settling cases. And there's some you want in a street fight. Not that
Mhm.
it has to be a street fight, but if it is a street fight, then that's the one you want.
Yeah.
Right. And I always tell people, I tell my clients all the time, you are the consumer. If you tell me you want this to go, the calm, smooth, easy way, you're the boss of me, no problem. You tell me to pull off the gloves, no problem. I'm just the soldier, you're the general. And that's how I operate the case.
I remember when my parents got divorced, my dad basically took all of the cash and he put it into gold and hid it so that my mom would get less money. And then he was really aggressive at the hearings.
Mhm.
So aggressive that the other a lawyer that was representing mom said, listen, this guy is just a nutcase. I don't know what you're going to, just being around that, you almost would pay not to have to be around this individual. So
Right.
unfortunately, like the way it ran wasn't necessarily trying to get, something that was amenable to everyone. It was more like, how do we, get away from the problem?
Yeah. And I also have a lot of clients who come in for like divorce planning, like, hey, this isn't going well. Tell me what I need to do to set myself up. So, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, 12 months from now, I've positioned myself appropriately. And so I do that for a lot of people too.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because basically a lot of the reasons why I've seen people not getting divorced is because they don't have a vision for how are they going to work through this. And there's just fear and anxiety. So it's kind of beautiful because if you educate people on this is what the process would look like, this is what you could expect, obviously it settles their brain.
Right.
Yeah. I've got a few people that I think that may need to speak to you relatively soon.
Oh, well, thanks.
Including one last night that I got that was pretty clear that there was a divorce in the making, Sad.
You know what? Sometimes people say to me, I can't believe that you make money off of people's misery. And the first time that was said to me, like, that really hurt me. Like, oh my God, am I making money off of people's misery? Like, that's terrible. And then I thought to myself, well, dentists make money off of people's pain and misery. Doctors make money off of, like, I was just trying to process through, is it a bad thing? And I guess it depends on how you approach it. Cause I always just view it as a reconfiguration of their family life. I don't see it as, making money off of people's misery. I see it as making money off of helping them reform something, so it kind of took me a while to get through the fact that, they were living in pain, but I just try to be a good listener and have a good result at the end. So, they're not in pain and misery at the end.
I kind of framed it more like you're at the worst point of most people's lives.
100%. And, we have conversations in the office with our teammates and we say, listen, we know that Joe Blow calls 15 times a day. We know that he's annoying, but he is at the worst point in his life. He is operating in fear, sadness, grief, so like I even have to do it for myself sometimes. Like I put a Post-it note on my computer monitor that says, remember to smile when you're talking. They can see the smile. You know what I'm saying? Because people are they're so fearful. They feel like the other spouse's hand is in their wallet constantly. They're angry. So we just have to always kind of remind ourselves like everybody is in misery right now. Let's try to make it a better experience for them other than a worse experience for them.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's really funny when I got my Peloton delivered, they have this thing called white glove service. And I was so impressed with the service, and I won't go into the detail, but I talked to all of my staff about white glove service. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean for clients? Like, let's give white glove service. And they were all on board because I told them how great it was and how impressed I was. And wouldn't that be great if we could have that impression for our clients as well?
So now I'd like to transfer a bit in our conversation. One might think I'm a jerk for now bringing this into the conversation, but we discussed it before we came on.
Okay.
So I think it's incredible that you're a divorce lawyer who's actually gone through 3 of her own divorces.
2 divorces, 3 marriages. Yeah, 2 divorces, 3
I
marriages.
Thought it was 3.
No,
sorry.
Oh my God, no.
We don't want to forecast or foreshadow anything, so we're 2 divorces.
No. And we won't forecast anything because he'll just end up dead in the backyard if that's the way we're going. Like, I've told him, like, we're not doing this. And he knows.
So when you go through your own divorce, who do you get to represent you?
Well, that's actually an interesting question. My first divorce, it started off really horrifically, just conversations between him and I. And he was with me when I went to law school. So he was very aggressive. Like, I put you through law school. I want 1/2 of your law firm. And he was very intimidating to me at the time. I lost like 47 pounds, worried about it, which is crazy because I'm such a fighter for other people, but I'm so conflict adverse in my personal life. Like, I'd rather just be happy than right in my personal life.
Yeah.
But he put me through so much stress. I finally got mad one day, and I finally looked at him and I said, you better hire the best attorney you can find, because I will take you up to the California Supreme Court 15 times if I have to. I will make this like a $3 million divorce. So we're either going to settle this like adults, or you better go find somebody.
Yeah.
And we ended up going to Chewy's Mexican bar in Encino and having a cocktail and writing it up on the back of a menu. And that was how divorce number 1 ended.
Wow.
Yeah, but
it's oftentimes, I've told people the same thing you've just said, that when people are in a divorce and the one party allows themselves to be beaten down and doesn't stand firm, they don't know, but they're actually prolonging the pain.
100%.
And it's like one of the weirdest paradoxes, because you're like, so by being assertive, I don't even want to use the word aggressive, but by being assertive, you actually get the other person to act, because if they feel as if they have control over you, even if it's only your anger in return, then basically what happens is they just think, oh, I can take this and get what I need or want from the other one.
100%. And I tell clients when they come into my office, listen, nice guys, nice gals finish last. You have to set the tone that the other person never wants to step foot in court with you ever again. And that they want to avoid that at all costs, especially when the kid is like 3. You have 15 years of possible court action on deck. And so you have to tell them, by your actions, we're going to settle this like adults, or I'm going to make court so painful for you that you never want to go back there. Yeah. And it's those people who have a successful 15-year co-parenting relationship with minimal court. Yeah. Because they know how expensive it is. They know how horrible it is.
Yeah. And they make clear agreements early on. So there's not this abstract, like, what's to be interpreted? What's the expectation I have that hasn't been met that I can blame you for?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Being nice and listen, that doesn't mean being an asshole either. No, it just means being firm, being firm and not being afraid to say, look, fine, let the judge decide. That's fine.
How is it like when you're with because you'll have kids involved in a lot of these divorces, I'm assuming.
Almost always.
And how is it? I mean, this is a kind of a weird question, but there may be times when you're in a case where you're representing one party that maybe if you were like to look deep inside yourself, you say, maybe it's not even best for the child to be with this person as opposed to the other person.
I wouldn't say not be with them at all. I would say
no, I don't mean not be. That's what I mean.
At a reduced schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So there are some times where people say, I want 50-50 custody. Well, you get up at 4 a.m. to drive to work at 5 a.m. How are you going to take your kids to school on the 2 days a week that you have them? How are you going to pick them up from school. Like, I get that that's what you want, but dude, let's be realistic. And it's with my man clients. They when people are married, there is a division of labor in the household, generally speaking, where, the wife takes care of the household grocery shopping, and I'm not trying to put people into like gender classifications, but generally speaking, the wives take the kids to school, they pick them up, whatever. And now the dads want to do that. And I'm like, that's great, but describe your day to me. Tell me how that's going to work.
Yeah.
Well, they can't. So, okay, dude, let's do something that makes sense. Let's do something. And so that's when I have the male clients. When I have the female clients and the men are saying they want 50-50, I'm like, sister, give it to him. Let him figure out that he can't do this for themselves. Because right now it's just you telling him he can't do that. And you're like a magnet repelling them. Yeah. He'll be done with this in 35, 40 days, and then we'll get back to reality. And the moms are so reluctant to let go of the grip. And I'm like, really? You don't ever want to go wine tasting with your girlfriends on a weekend? Really? Like, come on. So, generally speaking, when they let go and for 45 days, the dad's like, okay, I can't do this. Let's re-talk about this, But you got to give everybody a chance to rise like a phoenix or understand their limitations.
I love that. It's the way I live, by the way, in everything I do. In fact, when I say, when I'm working with a client and the client is sort of managing a problem but not changing anything, I want to make that problem so much worse for them, because apparently it needs to be much worse for them to do anything about it.
Right, exactly. 100%.
That's what you call contrast.
That's what I call contrast. Yeah. I use the word contrast, because if there's no contrast, then you think, oh, this is, even though I'm suffering, it's sustainable. So better that it become unsustainable, because that's when you actually can make an informed decision.
100%.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, and I can see how it would be struggling for someone who has a very big attachment to, I'm a good mother, and a good mother wouldn't do this, and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And really what's crazy is when I have the resisting parent, I'm like, you know what? The day before you guys filed for divorce, you both were great parents. You were both capable parents. You both had faith in the parenting abilities of the other parent. What changed by the filing of a piece of paper? What happened in those 24 hours? And they can't explain it, of course, but it's hard to get people to let go. And, especially when the kids are little, which is the best time to get divorced. Between under age 5, kids really don't have a memory of their parents being together. They don't grieve the loss of their Christmas Eve traditions with mom and dad. People always say, is there a good time? Well, no, there's never a good time. But if I had my preference, your child would be 5 or under, or 18 or over, because, when kids are 10, they grieve the loss of their traditions. They grieve the loss of, Thanksgiving at Grandma Jane's house with everybody playing Uno after. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was talking to a friend that was in this situation of, moving towards divorce, and he has a few kids, and the oldest of the kids was something like 24 years old, or the youngest of the kids was like 24. And he says, Andy, the kids are just too young. I can't do this to them. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's 24. He's got his own life. He's not,
Oh, that's
it's amazing.
Crazy.
It's amazing how deep a belief goes that, you have to be there for your kids.
And you know what? That belief. So this is the continuum of that belief. Oh, my kids are 4. I want to get divorced. No, they're just starting school. Let me wait. Oh, couple years later, oh my God, I can't get divorced now. My kids are starting high school. They're playing sports. Let me wait till they graduate high school. Oh my God, my kids went to college. My daughter's getting married. I can't get divorced now. And so they put off for they live in misery for 20 years, instead of, your kids don't benefit by their parents living an unfulfilled life. You know what I'm saying? And so you see, this continue, and people say to me, well, I want damages. I want money because of loss of consortium. We haven't had sex for 15 years. I'm like, sister, that's on you. Like, I can't help you with that. Like, I can't. You made that decision. You don't get money in family law court for not having sex for 15 years. Like, I'm sorry that was your existence. But that happens a lot. And it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I always say, and Ronnie, my wife, is listening, and she's heard it enough. Like, we're always one day away from divorce, because what I've said is we are not going to avoid a single discussion. So if an issue comes up, we talk about it. Like, it isn't going to be. There's no resentment. There's no buildup, and like allowing ourselves to be free enough to say we're always going to address everything as and when it comes up, then you don't need to get divorced, obviously. But if you're holding on to the idea we're never going to get divorced, that means all the problems can build up like a pack of a fire that's ready to burn the house down.
Yeah, it's funny that you
trigger you guys.
Yeah,
it's funny that you said that, because when I was in Mexico, I met this couple. I'll talk to anybody. Like, I love talking to people, and I said, "Oh, what are you guys doing here?" And they're saying, "Oh, we're on our marriage analysis vacation." I'm like, marriage analysis vacation? What's that? Once a year, we go on vacation, we leave the kids, we leave the dogs, we leave the bills, and we talk about things that have happened over the last year, resentments that we have, things that we need to improve on, things that we would like the other person to do. And I went, it takes you a year to do that? Like, hey, I'm glad you're doing it, but like, why don't you do that like once a month? Why don't you speed up that process? But it was just interesting that that's what they do. And it's like, they explained it as, it's a zero holds barred conversation. They agree to leave that vacation, leaving the conversation there, and like taking the action steps that they agree to going forward. But I thought, oh my God, a year? I couldn't go a week without.
Yeah, me neither.
No way.
No way, because if I don't have a clean head, I can't do, like for you and your work. I'll have a pretty intense schedule times. If I have that in my head, I can't do the things I'm going to do, because I'm going to get divorced, right? That is the consequence of it,
right?
Of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. This has been a very fun talk. I have to say.
I can't believe our time is almost up. I'm so disappointed.
I didn't know. I was kind of a bit anxious before we came on, because I'm like, I don't even know what you can say, and I was so scared we were going to talk about these are the 5 steps one needs to do for a divorce, but I knew we wouldn't, because I saw your Facebook feed. So
no, that's not going to happen. And when I was in Mexico, I actually came up with this idea of like this whole new business of divorce concierge service. Like, let's get people to escape reality for their weekend. They know they're getting divorced. Let's put them in 2 separate hotel rooms. I will reserve the conference room of wherever we are. Let them be in a relaxed setting, and let's mediate their divorce and get it done in a weekend. It's totally possible to do. Could have the computer, could do it right there. Like, they would actually save money in the long run. And
even get a vacation out of it.
It's like something is percolating in the back of my brain. So we'll see.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, if anything, the concept is so appealing that others, especially if they have the money and they could, actually it would probably be less expensive if you were to do it that way, if you think about it.
Oh, for sure. 100%. 100%.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. There's something about coming to an office and talking about things and going to a resort.
Right. So people are a little bit more relaxed.
We have.
Do you want to hear?
Sorry. I just wanted to. We love Bolalang. He's one of our daily viewers from South Africa.
Oh,
and
hi.
He says the topic is heavy, but the conversation is flowing. I'm going to take that as he's giving us a thumbs up for the show.
Awesome.
He likes emotional shows. So the fact that he stayed with us, even though we were talking storytelling, is great.
Awesome. So do you want to hear my story about my 3 last names?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I told the judge I couldn't have a hearing on a certain date because I was getting married. And so we have a packed courtroom, and he's like, so when are you getting married? Where are you? And I'm like, Your Honor, can we talk about this like sidebar? I don't want 40 people that I don't know in the audience, like knowing all my details. And he's like, sure, come on up. And he's like this older Jewish guy, balding head. Like, I love him. And so I go sidebar and he's like, asking about the details. And so he's like, are you changing your name? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, well, is Placencio your maiden name? And I'm like, no, Your Honor, DeCourcy's my married name. And then he's like, who's Placencio? So that's this whole conversation about names. And all of a sudden he blurts out in open court in front of like 20 lawyers and 40 litigants, oh my God, you're like the Erica Kane of this courthouse. And if you know anything about daytime television, Erica Kane is like this soap opera character who's been married like 47 times. And the whole courtroom audience just blurted out into laughter, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this has been
him.
Oh my gosh, he's so great. I love him, but it was just a funny moment about my last name trilogy.
That's sweet, but he must have had an affection for you if he really wanted to bring you up to have a discussion about this.
I have great relationships with all the judges. They all know me by first name, and yeah.
So any of them find you to be a troublemaker? Like, you have any issue with any single judge that sort of like says, "Hey"?
There's a one or two that I've gotten into pretty big tussles with. It's nerve-wracking. I know they don't like me. Oh yeah, there is one judge in particular, like every time I walk into his courtroom, I know the hair on his arm stands up, like he hates me. And the feeling's kind of mutual, so we go at it. And if I can get him off of a case, I will.
Okay.
Just because like he doesn't like me, and I don't want my clients to be adversely affected because of his personal opinion about me, which is fine.
Yeah, understood. And is that possible to get off a judge's schedule?
Yes, every litigant has a right to ding one judge.
Okay.
So when we first file the case, if I see that we got that judge, I'm like, nope, ding. I'll take anybody else. So yes, everybody can ding one judge.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're over our hour. Wow.
I know. I'm so bummed.
That was really great.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah. I kind of feel like we got probably half the stories that would have been.
Yeah, let's do it again.
We can do divorce divorce version 2.
How many have you done?
Around 500, give or take.
5. And in the process at the moment, how many?
About 65.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And you gave an hour of your time for this. Wow.
Thank you.
Yep. I won't bail you. Don't worry.
Yeah,
sue us.
Exactly. You can sue us for it. And by the way, like it was so funny. I knew how busy you were because the last one we lost the hour because you thought it was the following day. Which was great.
I'm so sorry.
It wasn't a problem. I don't know if you see our show. There's an enjoyment in us because we go live whether the guest is there or not. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a really good show on relationships.
Oh, good.
Just how one would deal with a relationship so they don't have to get to divorce.
Mm-hmm.
That was the idea, at least.
Well, call me back anytime. I love talking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend, yeah?
Thanks. You too. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Bambos. That was a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are these risky ones. I don't know how risky they are, but things that like neither of us would probably have any real connection to, but it's curious at least. I'm still trying to get the mortician on. If there's anyone out there that works as a mortician, I've been trying to get a mortician on the show, and that's been a hard one. Yeah. I've actually had contact with 2, and they said the topic is so emotional that they don't like to talk about it. I guess part of the reason why I would want to have them on is because I could imagine that work. There's something about that work which is just it's almost ceremonial. So it would be really curious just to see and hear what life is like to experience that. Right. I even asked the person who took care of my mom when she died if he would be willing to come on.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out, unfortunately. Yeah. Another week, Bambos. 84 of these things. Can you believe it? And we've got some very big news next week. You don't even know the big announcement, but I'm going to tell you after we get off. We've got some big news next week. Stuff is happening. Some big changes on A Wonderful Chaos.
Really?
Yep.
Nice.
A new co-host coming on the show next week. We're going to talk about it next week. So we have surprises coming up. Thank you again for being with us.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And Andy's taking me for dinner with his wife.
Yes.
So I'm going to see if I can get them into trouble.
Yeah. And the only prerequisite is you can't wear underwear out. That was the only thing. See you next week. Bye.
On
A wonderful chaos. Bye.